everybody, and welcome back to Rework It. Hi, Jesus. How's it going?
Hey, Kladi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. It's a very lovely afternoon here in Manchester. But most importantly, hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here at Rework It. I can see some lovely familiar faces in the chat. Michelle, Umacron, Emma Pe, Jesus in the chat as well. Andreas, Sean, Carol, thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and thank you so much for being here at Rework It. But before we get started, Jesus, why don't you tell us more about Rework It?
Definitely. Are you looking at my screen now?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. So if this is your first time watching, this is Rework It, the show where Claudia and myself take your Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign files and we rework them live. That means that we show you our professional tips and tricks to show you how to improve your work. And if you want to submit, you need to go into iamcladi.com/reworkit, iamcladi.com/reworkit, and click on this button that reads Submit Your Design. When you click on that, this window will come up, and all you need to do is enter your email, add your files, give us your name, your Behance profile. Very important. Make sure that you include your Behance profile. If you don't have one, just make one and include the file that you're submitting as your project. That way we can feature you during Rework It. We want to feature you, so make sure that you create your Behance profile. We're going to need data consent to use the files live on the stream. Let us know which apps you've used by checking those boxes. And if you have any specific questions or issues that you want to discuss, let us know by entering that information in the box. And of course, click submit. Once again, the website is iamcladi.com/reworkit. By the way, I just want to mention, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you head over into behance.net/live, behance.net/live, so that we can read your comments. And actually, talking about comments in the chat, let us know if you've submitted a design. And if you haven't, maybe you can submit one now. We're always looking for new designs, so make sure that you submit your designs at reworkit.com. But I know that Ferry, who's in the chat now, has submitted several designs. Actually, I just got kind of confused. And you spin on what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? I guess. Sorry, I got carried away by one of these comments here from Carol. But yeah, Kladi, anything else you want to add?
No, I just wanted to say, let us know also what are you tuning in from. I'm always super excited to learn about our international community. And let us know in particular if you would like to see more Illustrator or Photoshop. Or we never did that because we cover both Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. Why don't we run a poll and we see if we have people that are more fan of Photoshop, InDesign, or Illustrator? Let us know in the chat which one is your favorite app. I'm very curious.
Ooh, that'd be a good one. That would be a good one.
And I want to say hi to Team, of course, our Team bot.
Oh yeah, Timbot. Timbot's here. We're still not sure if Tim is a real human or not. He might be a bot. He just knows everything. Ferry's from Indonesia. Nice. Good to see you, Ferry. While people are responding to the questions we just asked, we're going to get started today with Photoshop. And while people are responding, let me just quickly give a shout out to Bessem Chabi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. He is a designer from Biskra, Algeria. So this is his work. As you can see, he's done some good stuff. And something very interesting about his bio is that he actually became a graphic designer later in life, as he puts it. And now he's trying to just reach the furthest levels in this field as he can. And it's something that he really enjoys and has a lot of passion for. And in some ways, very similar to your story, right, Kladi?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I started somewhere far away from design, and then just, as I say, always follow your passion and it will lead you to happiness. and that's where we are, being happy here at Adobe Live.
That's right. Yeah, definitely follow your passion. And it looks like we are getting some responses here. We have Hamilton, Ontario, Ferreira is Photoshop hands down. And then we got Bebop, which is Tim doing his little bot noises. I'm like R2D2. I'm from an island where there's been raining for 7 days nonstop. Wow, what island is that, Noor? Photoshop for me every time. So it looks like, Carol said Dimension. Wow, nice.
We have a little bit of Illustrator as well. And of course, everybody's still saying hello. But I want to say hi to Eric Sue. Hi, Eric. I used to see him in the chat during the main Adobe Live show. So nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know
Cool.
your favorite app, Eric. We are running this little poll in the chat, so let us know if your favorite app is Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign. And of course, why not Dimension, After Effects? Let us know what is your fave.
Definitely. Why don't we get started with Photoshop? Let me bring up Photoshop, and this is Bessem's image. It's a pretty cool composite. He's got some little 3D effect going here by hiding, I'm assuming this is him. This might not be him. So I shouldn't assume this is him, but he has this masking effect on the text, creating that 3D effect, which is super, super cool. And I'm going to do what I usually do. You guys know this already. I'm going to click on the eye icon and drag all the way down without releasing my mouse button so that I can hide these layers super quickly. And he has this background group. So one thing I did like about Bessem's work is that he didn't really name the layers, but he named the group, so that's better than nothing. But in this group, you can see that he has this background, and it was created by using these elements. And actually, you can kind of see where his thought process was going. It looks like this is where that character was standing, because you can see the shadow here. See that? So I'm guessing that because it looks like he also did some content to where fill or something here. I'm not sure what he did, but he's got that image. And I think that if I enable this, it kind of looks like it belongs there. So my assumption is that this is where this character took his photo. And again, I'm assuming that he used this layer or this background to trace the shadow, because he has this shadow and is very similar in terms of how it appears to the shadows on the image. So I'm assuming that's why he has that photo there, but it's definitely not part of the scene. But he created a background by using a gradient fill, curves to add a little bit of a highlight. It's really not making that much of a difference. So I would probably consider leaving it out. I'm not a big fan of having layers there that really don't do much, but in this case, we'll just leave it there. And then he's got this darkening effect that I'm not really sure if I like. I kind of like the highlight there, but we'll leave it there for now. And he has this shadow or this shape here at the bottom that's creating the ground plane. Right above that, he has the shadow that we were just talking about. And I'm not really sure why he did it this way, but it's made up of a lot of different elements. Here it is. So maybe I would consider, if you're going to do something like this, what I would do is I would just load all these layers as a selection. You can hold Control and Shift, that's Command and Shift on the Mac, and click on all the layer thumbnails, and you can see how you just loaded them all up as a selection. And I would just make it into one single shape. I think that might be easier to work with than all these little individual shapes. And also, a little later on, I can come back and soften it. I think the edges are way too sharp. We'll worry about that in a moment. But I just wanted to say that you might be able to save yourself layers if you just combine them all. In my opinion, there's no reason to have so many separate layers. So I just keep that one there for now, and always name your layers. Name your layers, name your layers, name your layers. And the reason that you want to name your layers is when you are working with, for a lot of reasons, because if you share your file with someone else, then they know exactly what they're going to be working with. And even if you never share your files with anyone, when you have the move tool selected, if you right click anywhere over the canvas, you can see a drop down, and look at this. You can see the layer name. So for example, I don't know what layer 9 is, but I do know that this layer is a shadow layer. So if I select layer 9, it selects layer number 9, right? But I don't know what layer 9 is. But if I wanted to select the shadow, I can simply select shadow, and it selects that shadow layer. So another useful reason why you should name your layers. But anyway, then we have this highlight here in the center and this shape creating this super cool gradient. Another way that you could have done this, I see that you hid the top part here by creating a layer mask. In reality, we have just a white rectangle, right? And you use the layer mask to create that effect. There's another way that I probably would have gone about it. It's not necessarily better, it's just a different way. I think it has a little more control, so I'll show you what that is. So you can delete the layer mask. I already see that you have a layer style, and it's a glow that you decided to hide that you didn't need. So let me just open this up and hide the glow, because you didn't want that. What you wanted was a gradient overlay like this that goes from, I'm going to make both of them white actually. And then here's the trick. So if I select one of these gradients and then click on this top black button, you can see the opacity. If I bring the opacity down to 0, it's not transparent, right? Why isn't it transparent? Well, that's because that layer has pixels. So we can actually tell Photoshop, hide the pixels that were originally in that layer and only use the pixels that we create via the layer style. And that's what I'm going to do. And to do so, you can go into blending options and reduce the fill opacity. And see that once we reduce the fill opacity, we get that transparency. And the cool thing is that now that is being controlled by this gradient editor. So I can, click and drag this over to the left and see how that changes the blend. Super cool stuff. I think I'll drag it just a little bit over to the left just so we can have a little more transparency on top. I can press OK, and also I can click and drag this up and down if need be. So you have, in my opinion, much more control doing it this way than using a layer mask. A layer mask works fine. You can certainly use it, but as you can see, this has a little more control. And Kladi, let me know if there's any questions in the chat.
Yes, I was actually replying to, you caught me. You caught me replying to Michelle. The question was more related regarding the uploader on the website. So apparently her file was very big in terms of, I believe it was a Photoshop photo composite that she was trying to send over. So what I was suggesting is to use the form anyway and put that in the message. So I will be able to, me or Jesús, we're going to be able to send you a Dropbox uploader for extreme large files. So we're still going to be able to get your file over to us and review it and hopefully feature it. So simply use the form, the same form that you find at iamkladi.com/reworkit, and just in the note explain the issue, and I'll be super happy. And if you do it right now, I'm actually going to be able to send you the uploader right away so you can submit your work. I'm super curious to see who submits the work while we are live. And there was another person in chat, which I'm really scrolling up to see if I can get the name. Betty said, I'm no designer or artist, but I would like to input the work I've done developing icons for my husband's website. Absolutely, Betty, feel free to send them over. That's what Rework It is all about. So we are all learning together. Adobe Live is such a wonderful safe space to learn together. So no matter if you're just a beginner or if you're a pro, we're here to work and rework it together. So feel free to use the form and send your file. I look forward to see the work that you created and the icons.
Definitely. And also feel free to just throw in, if you know how to do it, just make a Dropbox link and drop it in the comment section, and we'll still get your file that way if you like.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a fantastic idea, Sus. Yeah.
Cool. So let's move on. Let's keep going on here. We have this text layer that I'm assuming this is the person's name. I don't know. And then they added these shadows for when the character comes up. So let me just bring him up. Where did I skip the? Where is the? Oh, here it is. There he is. So these shadows were placed inside of that text layer so that you can create that illusion that his body is creating that shadow. Something that you need to be careful with is when you're masking these layers, and actually I think I was looking at it earlier and I think I might have fixed it. So the original file didn't have this, but in the original file you had like it looked like that you weren't really careful masking the text layers. So make sure that you come in here and really spend your time masking it and making it look good. I actually spent a little more time earlier making it look good, and that's what I came up with. So definitely spend your time fine-tuning the image. Another thing that I was looking at, and actually I usually revert my file, and I didn't revert my file now, and I don't want to. Actually, it's fine. I don't need to revert the file. Another thing that I was noticing is that on this main image, two things I talked about in the past. Number one is, look at this. So you have this cutout of this person, but you only have a layer mask that's only hiding like a couple of things here, like on his, between his fingers and his arm here. So what I'm assuming happened is that you either had a layer mask before and then just rasterized it, or use something like the background eraser tool, which deletes pixels. And as I mentioned in the past, I wouldn't do that simply because you know, if you need to come back and adjust the mask, then those pixels are gone. There's nothing you can do about it. And I know that you know how to use layer mask because you made one here and then remembered, oh yeah, I missed this part here under his arm and the part next to his face. So I would have just used a layer mask for everything. In case you make a mistake, you can come back. And actually, if you notice, there's a lot of tiny little mistakes here on the mask, or on the cutout, I should call it. So it definitely helps to have a layer mask, so you can come back and fine tune those adjustments, especially if you cut into the body and you cannot get those pixels back. So again, I know I sound like a broken record. I feel like I talk about it in almost every stream, but try to use layer mask and don't delete pixels in case you need them. Another thing is I noticed that you're using an image with really bad resolution. You can actually see a lot of the JPEG artifacts over the person here. You can see it here on the sleeve. You can see it on his face right here. You see all those little artifacts are because of the JPEG compression. So this is obviously a JPEG that was either saved multiple times and compressed multiple times, or saved one time with a really, really low compression, or high compression. So I would avoid using those images. And I know that sometimes you have to work with what you have. And if that's the case, you have to work with what you have. There's a new tool in Photoshop 2020 called the neural filters. So with your layer selected, you can go into filter, neural filters, and in the neural filters, there is something called JPEG artifact removal. You can enable that, and you can use it to remove some of that JPEG compression. See that, or at least hide it. You're essentially blurring the image to get rid of that compression. You can, you know, do a low strength, medium strength, or high strength. We'll just go for high. I think in this case, you can push it up that high and it works great. The output, I'm just going to duplicate the layer and press OK. So now I have a duplicate layer with that, that removes some of that compression. And also what you can do is you can create a layer mask on this layer, and on the layer below, and actually clip it to the layer below like that, so that the original layer is the one confining the edges. And then you can paint with black on this layer mask to reveal some of the detail that was lost. So for example, here on the jacket, on these fuzzy areas, I think that we need to paint with black to bring back some of that detail. I don't think the JPEG compression in that area at least it actually helps it, you know, bring out some detail. So you can see the before and the after, see that? So you can decide which areas to paint black on to bring back some detail that was lost. So maybe like on the buttons here, and, you know, maybe shoes, or I don't know. It's up to you to look at the image and see where you can benefit from having some of the original pixels that have some of that compression. But overall, the JPEG compression won't be as noticeable. So like, for example, here on his face, right here, look at this. When I disable the layer, before and after, see that? So you might want to do that to help sort of hide the fact that you are using a low resolution image. Any other questions in the chat, Kladi?
People are admiring the speed of your computer.
Yeah, even though Photoshop can't run 2 video cards, I do have 2 video cards in this computer.
So Sean was like, dang, JR's computer is fast.
Cool. So then I noticed that he used an exposure adjustment layer to add a shadow to the image, and that's totally fine. You could have, you could have done it with curves, maybe gotten a better result. Let me try it with curves and see what happens. So I'm just going to use the same. I'm going to use the same layer mask that you use. And by the way, I just loaded the layer mask by holding Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, and clicking on the layer mask thumbnail. And I'm going to use a curves adjustment layer, and I'm just basically going to do the same thing and see what happens. I think we might get better results. Yeah, I think we are. So notice the difference, especially here in on the hand. See that? So the one I made with curves versus the one he made with exposure. See how we get this flat black looking color on his hand compared to curves? I think curves looks a little bit better, so I would just use curves and maybe even consider using luminosity. But let me see, normal versus luminosity. In this case, it doesn't make a huge difference. Yeah, it doesn't make a big difference. So it doesn't really matter. But usually, let me just show you why I would use luminosity sometimes. So I'm going to make a really crazy adjustment, right? Super crazy adjustment. right there. And when you make an adjustment with curves, you inadvertently saturate the image. So notice how much I saturated the reds on the face. So if I change it to luminosity, see that? I'm only affecting luminosity now and not saturation. So sometimes I like to change the blending mode to luminosity to not affect saturation, but in this case, it didn't make a difference. That's why I was kind of going back and forth to see if I needed to. Cool. And yeah, so I wouldn't use exposure in that case just because I think it flattens the skin tones a little too much. Even the curves adjustment layer is doing it a little bit, but I don't think it's doing it as much. And then you have this curves adjustment layer that created this nice highlight coming from the back, which is super cool. And you have another highlight here, enhancing the effect. And I'm not really sure about this layer. So this layer right here creates this I don't know, it just mutes everything, and I don't like, I liked how the layers stood out, the text layer stood out, the text stood out. And I'm not sure if you need this layer. If you do include it, I would include it like down. Oh, actually, let me show you a trick. I was dragging the layer down, but you can actually press the bracket key. Oh, for some reason, my keyboard shortcuts are not working. Okay, here we go. If you press the control key on Windows, that's the command key on the Mac, and tap on the left bracket key, you see how I'm just moving the layer down? And if I tap the right bracket key, I can move the layer up. So I don't need to drag the layers in between the panel. Also, if you hold Control, Shift, and down, it just drops it all the way to the bottom. And when I said down, I meant to say left bracket key. And now that I'm at the bottom, I can move it up all the way to the top by pressing the right bracket key and holding Control and Shift. That's Command and Shift on the Mac. So when I'm down here, I can just now find a place for it. And I just really wanted it like behind the text. I didn't really want it above the text because I think that the text, you know, is such a bright object that covering the brightness with that gray doesn't look good, at least to my eye. And also, I just noticed another thing, that you have this shadow behind him on this wall, and that really wouldn't make sense because you already established the light source by the photo, which is coming from the left, which is why you have this shadow here. So I wouldn't necessarily use this shadow, and I'm trying to figure out what layer is creating that, and I'm not really sure. So see how it's good to name your layers, because it really helps you figure out where things are. So it's definitely in this group. Is it this one? Not this one. Oh, you have a highlight here. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And in the meantime, Jesús, we have a question as well that I wanted to pass to you.
Yeah, what's the question?
Ferry was asking how to put a cast shadows according to the direction of the light. So how do you figure that out?
Oh man, there's okay, that's a loaded question. So hold on, just so that I can see what layers are in here. I'm gonna make this red, that way I can see all the layers are in that group. So that's not that one. It's not this one. Where is the? Oh, and I'm gonna get to that question in a moment. Oh, here we go. So you use this exposure adjustment layer to create the shadow. So that's okay, but I don't think it. Oh, did I not clip it? It was my bad. Oh, it's actually my bad, not your bad. That should have been clipped. I think I might have unclipped it on accident. But in case I didn't, and in case that's how you had it, I don't know. We're gonna assume that it was my mistake. But if it was not my mistake, make sure that you don't have that additional light source on there. So then this is just creating the highlight here on the right. I think that might have been my fault. So to answer Ferry's question, it's actually, there's so many YouTube videos that you can watch on like perspective drawing, and they show you how to, find the horizon line, find the light source, and then trace lines to figure out how an object will cast a shadow. There is no way we're going to be able to do that in the next 2 minutes because, it's about to be your turn, Kladi, and this will take 30 minutes just to sort of explain it. But if you're interested on getting like perfect cast shadows, and even then you probably wouldn't get it perfectly, but somewhat realistic cast shadows, then just type on YouTube perspective drawing and shadows in perspective or something like that, and there's actually like I don't want to call it a mathematical equation, but a way that like artists figure out how to create a cast shadow based on the horizon line, based on the vanishing points, and based on where the light source is and what type of light source you're talking about. And actually, now that I'm talking about all this, there is on my YouTube channel, photoshoptrainingchannel.com, there is a recording of my very, very first live speaking event ever at Adobe, I mean, in general, but it was at Adobe San Jose, Adobe World Headquarters. And it was in compositing, and I actually talk about that. If you look on my YouTube channel, it's probably going to be one of the ones way here in the back. Here we go. It's 6 years ago, actually. That was my first live presentation ever, and it's sorry if I'm not as polished as I am now. Not to say that I am polished now, but definitely not as good as now. But anyway, so if you watch this live stream, it's not a live stream, it's actually in person, but in here, you'll see how I talk about the different types of shadows and the things that are on there. Actually,
We
wrong
don't
screen.
see it
This screen right here.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
So I was looking at the wrong screen. So here it is. Compositing techniques, live presentation at Adobe. It was 6 years ago. And you can see how in this video about minute 28, I talk about the different types of shadows, and then how shadows are affected by, you know, the size of the light source, the distance of the object to the light source, and all that fun stuff. So you can check that out if you want. Again, it's called Compositing Techniques, Live Presentation at Adobe Headquarters for the Creative Cloud User Group in San Jose. But yeah, cool. So I hope that answers your question. And who asked that question again, Kladi? I'm sorry.
Ferry.
Ferry. Yeah, thank you for your question, Ferry. And I had one more. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to show you, because I know it's your turn, Kladi, is the shadow that I made earlier, and I named it. See that? Now I can just right click on it and select shadow, and oops, I selected the group, not the layer. There it is. I think that your shadow's a bit too sharp here. So what I would do is I would just blur it a little bit. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and blur it a little bit, just a tiny little bit. And I think you were so the cast shadow will be darker, closer to the person, and you know, it'll fade as you move away. And I think you did that just fine. So I like that. So good job there. And also the shadow wouldn't necessarily go past this foot. So, you know, you gotta be careful with those little details. So I would just paint with black there. And I think that looks much, much better. And I think the shadow might be a little too strong. This scene is way too bright. So maybe what I would do instead is create a gradient actually. So I changed my mind on that. I think it might look better with, oops, wrong way. I need to start from here and go this way. And then I can just unlink it. And with the move tool, I can move the mask and figure out, you know, where I really want this. So maybe something like that. And maybe if that's too strong, I can reduce the density a little bit. It's almost like the opacity for the mask. And yeah, those are the changes that I would make for in this composite. Let me know if there's any other questions. If not, Kladi, I'm going to turn it over to you.
We're celebrating, I believe, Carol. I just got confused in the chat. Let me go back, because we're celebrating a new monitor arrival. So I was just
awesome.
following the conversation, because I get super excited about new monitor as well. Let me see.
Well,
we got a new
monitor.
monitor.
I know that you just got a new monitor, Kladi.
Yes, that's why I was sharing the excitement. I got a BenQ monitor, which I absolutely love. Carol, just like you, it was 27 inches. And besides displaying amazing colors, it's always super safe for my eyes, and I can move it, tilt it around. It's really cool. Definitely worth it investing in the tool for your work. So I understand your excitement, Carol. She said that before she was getting some blue and yellow tints, and we didn't look that good in that colors. So super cool.
Nice. I just got a new monitor as well, and it's still in the box. I haven't opened it yet, but it's
which monitor do you get?
MSI 32 inches WQHD. It's got Adobe RGB on it. I think yours does as well. And sRGB and DCI-P3 and all that good stuff. So it's actually, no, the one that I got is a creator monitor from MSI. So it's still in the box. I haven't opened it, but it's downstairs.
Yeah, so we're celebrating Monitor Week. Apparently, everyone's getting some new little props for the work. Fantastic. And again, feel free to keep asking your questions here in the chat. We're super excited to be able to read your comments live and reply. And as I say all the time, I probably said it already today, Adobe Live is a safe space to learn together. So feel free to ask your questions, no matter if you're a beginner or if you're a pro. We're here to learn. Sometimes I learn from the questions. I don't necessarily know everything about what you guys ask, but that's a great opportunity to learn. We got team in the chat, so we're safe. And also, Sus, you got an Adobe Sensei t-shirt today, don't you? I don't know if you can.
Oh yeah, I do. I don't know if you can see it, but I do have an Adobe Sensei shirt.
Super
I
cool.
got this at Adobe Summit like 2 years ago. Back when we can do conferences.
Yes.
In person.
And hopefully that's going to happen soon again. And let me go back now into my screen, and I'm going to tell you real quick how to submit your file for those of you who just joined. Make sure to head on imcladi.com/reworkit. And again, if you are watching from YouTube and you have any questions, head over on behance.net/live. So we're going to be able to read your comments, answer your questions, and of course, say hello. So remember, imcladi.com/reworkit. In order to submit your file, click on the Submit Your Design button. And from here, super straightforward. All we need is your email, your file, your name, your Behance profile, because we're ready to give you a shout out as soon as we start working, and of course a data consent. And you have a little bit of a space also to type your questions, anything that you want to expand about your design, or if it's the case like before, I believe with Michelle, there is any issue with your file, you can either place a WeTransfer or a Dropbox links directly into the message box, or maybe just tell us right away using the form, and we'll be able to send an uploader link for you to send us your file. But we're really excited to look at your work, so submit. We have more episodes coming, and we look forward to see your work. And talking about submission, let me focus on the artist that we're going to be celebrating right now, which is Malik Assad from Lahore, Pakistan, which is a graphic designer and artist. And we can see here that he has different graphics coming in terms of styles. We have some flat illustration in Illustrator, then we have some UX design, and then some custom typography. So feel free to give it a follow, and also feel free to explore his work. We have some oil painting as well, so definitely a mixing of technique of Photoshop and color painting. I can see a lot of lovely filters. I love when I see people experimenting with the app. That's probably one of the best way to learn how to use those wonderful apps. Just play around, experiment, and create your portfolio. We can see a lot of mock-ups of t-shirts as well. Fantastic. But let's focus on the project that is was the focus of today, Rework It, which is this flat illustration. And I can see here that we have a more refined look for the illustration here. This is the actual piece of art that we're going to be reworking on today. So all I'm going to be doing now is to jump into Illustrator, and hopefully we can give some nice tips and techniques on how to improve the work. Let me go ahead and open the file, and here it is. So that was the original file submitted by, and I just want to make sure that I pronounce the name correctly, Malik. Here it is. And the first thing that I do, as you probably know, if you witnessed any of the Rework It before, is that first thing that I do here is usually head to the layers panel and see how you structure your illustration, especially with complex vector illustrations that require different perspective. So we're going to have definitely a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. That usually is my starter point when creating my drawing. So of course the background will retain all the elements that needs to be hidden and fall behind. Then a middle ground, which in this case will be probably the body, and then the foreground, which in this case would have been the computer and the mug. And I can see that the approach that Malik had was a little bit different, still very valid. He split the layers depending on the actual structure of the illustration. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on his layers so you can see. We have a table, cup, I'm not sure what that is. Then we have face, eyes, hair, and right arm. So we have, again, layers split depending on the part of the illustration and part of the body that he was drawing. and they are layers and that are named. But then what happened? There is a last layer called laptop. And when I go ahead and turn off the visibility of the laptop layer by clicking on the eye icon, everything disappeared. So the beauty of working with layer is actually to retain control on each single part of your illustration in order to block and preserve the areas that you do not wish to modify, or maybe just hide them in order to focus your view on the area that you're working on. But what I think happened here, and don't worry Malik, that happens to me all the time, and I'm going to give you a little tips to make sure that that doesn't happen again, is that probably just to try to be nice and neat before delivering the file, I'm sure that what it did was to group the illustration. So unfortunately, when you group your illustration and you have a layer selected, all the layers are going to be kind of drawn into the same layer. So all your lovely work of creating different layers unfortunately got lost in the process of grouping. So remember, what I will do is to use the shortcut Command A on a Mac, that's Control A on a Windows, in order to select all your elements. And as you can see, we can also notice right away from the bounding box and the guides that everything is of the same color. So it's definitely everything located in the same layer. And then click and drag on your illustration while holding the Option key on a Mac, that's Alt on Windows, in order to create a copy. And only then I will create a new layer, drop the copy in the new layer, lock all my layers to make sure that everything is nicely preserved, and then group it. That will be my very first advice. Unfortunately, there is no way in which I can go back in time and undo, because that's the way the file got to me. Probably if your file is still open on your computer, or if you've saved your file as a cloud document, you will probably be able to head back into your history and have access to a previous version of your file, which is still retain the layers. And since I'm talking about saving on a cloud docs, let me show you how you can do that, because that's a fantastic new feature of the amazing Creative Cloud, letting us use storage in the Creative Cloud in order to save our file and make sure that they are available everywhere. This is super useful also if you're working on your iPad, so you're going to be able to jump from your iPad to your laptop in just a snap by saving your document. So all you have to do is press Command S if you haven't saved the file, or in this case, since I already have the file saved in my machine, I will be using the shortcut Shift Command S on a Mac, that's Shift Control S on a Windows, and then all you gotta do is to select a destination folder. I'm gonna go ahead and choose my desktop, and then click on Save Cloud Document. And by the way, don't worry, even if you already saved the file in your machine, you can always swap between a file saved into your computer to a document, a cloud document. I always said it the other way around. But again, all you have to do is to click on Save Cloud Document, and as you will see, the Save As dialog box will change. Instead of seeing your files in your machine, we're just going to see the cloud documents area, and all you have to do here is to simply save your name your file and click on save. And as I mentioned before, if you're not happy with this and you want to go back to your machine, here we go. We have on your computer button. You can click that in order to open it. But what happens once we do save the file into our cloud document? How do we access it? So the first thing that you want to notice when you save your file is that we have a little cloud that is already on the tab on top of our file name. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. Here it is. We got a lovely little cloud that tells us, hey, we're working with a super amazing cloud document. Then I'm going to click on the home in order to enter the Illustrator home page. And as you can see, there is a tab here called Cloud Documents. Well, that's exactly the place where you're going to be able to find all your documents. And as you can see, our flat illustration is already there. And there is also the opportunity to make it available offline always. And I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And as you can see, the files open right away. Of course, you can access your cloud documents from your Creative Cloud app from your desktop. So that's super, super cool. Right, so once we talked a little bit about the cloud documents, I'm gonna go ahead and focus more on the illustration. The first thing that I'm gonna do here is to ungroup the file, ungroup the illustration in order to access the different elements. Although there is a tool that is quite neglected in Illustrator that I wanna point you out to before we get into ungrouping. If you head to the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow on our toolbar, and we click and hold on it, we're going to be able to reveal the hidden tools. And the tools that I want to talk to you about is the group selection tool, which is a really cool tool. You can also access the group selection tool by pressing the letter A, which will bring you to the direct selection tool, and then use the Option key on a Mac, that's Alt on Windows. And as you can see, I'm going to zoom in into my screen so you will be able to notice the difference. The little white arrow, which is the direct selection tool that allows you to select each single vector point one at a time by pressing Alt or Option on the Mac. There is a little plus that appears next to our white arrow. And look what happens once I click on an element. It will select the entire elements even if it belongs to a group. So I have not ungrouped my file. Everything is still grouped, but I'm sure that has probably happened to you, because that happened to me many, many times, that when you have a grouped element, the usual procedure is to click and then click again and then click again until you enter all the possible layers of the isolation mode inside your group. Well, there is a fantastic way to do so and to skip that process, which is again pressing the letter A and then Option or Command and then clicking on the graphic element that you would like to select, and you'll be able to enter the group without double clicking a bazillions of times. Let me know in the chat if that ever happened to you. That happened to me very often. So that's the way in which we can enter the group and modify the elements one at a time without releasing a group. Fantastic. So another thing that I noticed right away in this illustration is the fact that we do have some issues with the Mac. And as you can see, the rounded corner, and I say Mac, sorry, because we have the logo in the middle, so it just kind of calls out to be a Mac computer. So I can see that, I don't know if you've drawn this on an iPad, so probably is hand drawn. I don't know if that's was the look that you were going for, but I would love to share with you a fantastic way in which you can create a rounded corner, which is what you were trying to achieve here on this illustration in just a click. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to press the letter M on my keyboard in order to select the rectangle tool, which is also located on the toolbar just right here under the curvature pen tool, and then click and drag to create your rectangle. And that's a normal rectangle which has got all these pointy corners. So how do we achieve rounded corners? As you can see right away, we can notice these little dots located inside the corners. Well, those are the corner widgets, which are super fantastic tools that will allow you to click and drag and really, really quickly transform your rectangle into a rounded corner rectangle. Again, you can double click on them also in order to open the little transform panel, and here you can give a little bit more details in the actual measure of the curves, so you can have a full control on them, and you can also decide if you want to scale them when you scale your image. So that's something that you want to think about when creating an illustration. But what happens if, for example, we want to make the design a little bit more realistic? Why don't we create a rounded corner on the top, but we leave the bottom corner straight? How do we do that? Because as you can see, what we did now by clicking and dragging, all the corners move at the same time. So we're gonna swap back to our direct selection tool by pressing the letter A, and then simply click on the corner widget that you would like to select. In this case, I'm gonna select one of the top corner because that's the one that I'm looking to transform into a rounded corner, and I'm gonna hold the Shift key and select on the second one to add it to my selection, and then click and drag inward. And as you can see, all I'm doing is to changing the roundness and the shape of the top corners, while my bottom corners stay nice and straight. And as you can see, very, very quickly, we achieved a nice and clean shape. So we have no problem with all these little corners here, which have a little bit of a weird look at the moment. Do we have any questions in the chat, Jesus?
No, everyone's still talking about the monitors that they have, and there's a whole lot of talk about that. Ferry did ask a little while ago, how do clipping masks in Illustrator work?
Yes,
Or how to do a clipping mask in Illustrator rather.
absolutely. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Thank you for your question, Ferry. Thank you so much. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is first to replace our monitor with our new monitor here. And I'm going to click and drag just to reposition it. And then I'm going to press the letter I on my keyboard and then click on the color that it was used from Malik, just like so. And then we can use a circle and bring it back into our image. Now to bring it on top of the laptop, make sure to use the shortcut Command Shift right bracket. And as you can see, we have placed it on top of our computer. Now hold Shift and click on the computer to add both elements into the selection, and then head to the properties panel and click on align and align to key object in order to align the circle respectively to our the back of the screen. Now how do we know which object is the key object of reference that we're going to use? Well, as you can see, the key object has almost like a thicker line. Oops, and it looks like I clicked away. So let me show that again. So again, align and key object. So as you can see, the circle has a little bit of a thicker outline, selection line on it. How do we switch to the computer? So how do we swap an element? How do we determine a key object in a selection when we align it? Very, very simply, just simply click on it. So if I click on the computer, you will see that the thickest blue line will turn to the computer. If I want to change it back to the circle, just click on it. The selection is not going to get lost. You're just going to determine which one is the object that we're going to be aligned respectively to. And now that I selected my computer, I can easily go into my icons and select the second icon to align horizontally, and then align it vertically as well, just like so. So we very, very quickly align it to the selection. Right, clipping mask. Let's talk about clipping mask real quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and so what I'm gonna do is to use Airface to create maybe an avatar. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the selection and then click and drag to create a copy while holding the Option key on a Mac. That's Alt on a window. So we can see that we have an illustration that comes a little bit out. So how would I do if I want to create just a little circle out of that face illustration? What I'm gonna do is to press the letter L in order to activate the ellipse tool. And I would really love for you to learn this shortcut, because I work in Illustrator like I play the piano. So it's so much faster rather than moving around. But of course, if you do not fancy using shortcut, that's completely fine. You can find all these amazing tools into the toolbar. And in particular, the ellipse tool, you will find it nested under the rectangle tool. So if we have the rectangle tool selected, all you have to do is to click and hold on the rectangle tool, and you will see the ellipse tool just under it in the hidden tools. Right, now with our ellipse selected, I'm gonna click and drag while holding Shift in order to create a perfect circle. And then I'm gonna go ahead and press the letter V to activate the selection tool and reposition it. I can also go to the fill and stroke control located at the bottom of the toolbar and make sure that the fill, click on the fill and then click on none, which is the white square with the little red stroke in the middle. I'm going to zoom in so you can see the one that I'm clicking at. It's just this one right here. And that will allow us to have a stroke to our circle, but a transparent fill, so we can actually see where we are positioning our little image. Now remember, I've ended up ungrouping the illustration. Before you create a clipping mask, remember, group the image that you want to mask. So there are two main rules. The object that's going to work as a frame needs to sit on top of the object that is going to be masked, and the object that sits below, which is the object that you're going to mask, needs to be a group or a compound path. So basically, Illustrator needs to look to a single shape or a group of shape in order to make sure to determine which one is the one that is the one to mask and which one is the frame to use as a mask. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag over the selection, and then hold Shift and click on the circle to exclude it from my selection, and then press Command G to group the image. Now I can go ahead and hold Shift and re-add my circle to the selection. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. And once you're done, press the shortcut Command 7 in order to create a clipping mask. And here it is. Just like magic, we have cut out our illustration and we're able to show only the part that we fancy thanks to the clipping mask. By the way, I'm going to press Command Z to undo because I want to show you real quick another way in which you can access the clipping mask, and most importantly, how to release it as well. You can find the option of a clipping mask under the object menu. So choose object, and then you will see here towards the bottom, we can see clipping mask. Simply click on make. As you can see, the shortcut that I gave you before, Command 7, that's Control 7 on Windows. And again, if you want to release it, click on object and then clipping mask and then release. Now, something that I would like to mention as well is when you create an object that works as a frame, the appearances, so any fill or any stroke or anything that you have applied to that image that you're going to use as a frame is going to go. So if you wish to retain it, make sure to make a copy. So if, for example, I wanted to retain the circle, I just would have needed to make a copy before creating the clipping mask. And what happens if you're not happy with the positioning of the clipping mask? Is locked forever? Absolutely not. You can double click inside the frame, and as you can see, you're going to be able to select the image and move it around your clipping mask. So if you're not happy with its positioning, you can just simply move it around, and also you're always free to resize it as well. Don't forget to use the shift key when resizing your object in Illustrator in order to prevent any distortions and also keep the proportion, constrain the proportion. I know we got like 2 minutes to go, but I wanted to show something really quick regarding this illustration, in particular colors. That was something probably we can start tomorrow again to finish this project, because I wanted to talk about blending modes and colors. But just real quick, before we say goodbye, I want to leave you with this wonderful website. You can have a look and then be back with me tomorrow to explore and talk about it more. And I'm talking about color themes. So you can access color themes directly in your app by clicking on Windows and then color themes. And as I said, we're going to explore that tomorrow. But what I really want to show you is that this is one of the amazing services available online and at just a brand new look. So go ahead and have a look to color.adobe.com. This is a fantastic place in which you can explore colors, create new palettes from photos, and of course there is a game as well. So I'm gonna leave you today with a game. If you click on the color game, you're gonna be able to play with Adobe Color and have this lovely color wheel to play with. But don't forget also to create, explore, and of course, you're gonna be able to use your libraries in order to leverage the color themes that you create with this fantastic app. We're gonna talk about it tomorrow. Is it already time to say goodbye, or I can? You got about
no, you still have 2 minutes.
Oh, fantastic! Right. So I want to show you one of the fantastic, one of the most fantastic things that I features that I can see here. So first of all, super important. This is a new tool. There is an accessibility intent. So in the accessibility tool panel, you're going to be able to design with color blindness in mind. So here Adobe Color is going to let you know which color clashes for those who do have issues with color blindness, and Adobe Color is going to tell you right away which color can create these conflicts. So it's going to suggest you right away if there is a potential color conflict or if the color is safe, which I think that's so useful designing with accessibility in mind. But another fantastic feature that I wanted to show you is extract theme. So how do I convert the color palette that our lovely Malik has used to something a little bit more personal? Right, if you go and click on extract theme, you're going to be able to select a file, and I'm going to go ahead into my desktop and select one of my favorite photos that I took at my very first Adobe Max, and then click on open. And as you can see, this photo has a very bright color panel. So right away, Adobe Color has selected some color from the image. I can go ahead and use different color themes, so I can choose different color palette, maybe a muted or a deeper color, and again, this is all automatically selected. Or you can also move the little color pickers and change the color. If there is a specific color that you would like to add to your color palette, you can actually pick it right away from your image. And it doesn't finish here. There are two super amazing things that you can do with that. So first of all, you can save it to your favorite Creative Cloud library simply to selecting Save To. and then click on the down pointing arrow and select the library of your choice and click on the plus icon. And by the way, you can also name your theme. So again, click on plus, oops, sorry, and click on save. I don't want to create a new library. I'm going to use the one that I already have. And right away, once we jump back into Illustrator and select our libraries, make sure to go ahead and find the same library that we have there, which I believe was my test library. Here it is. The color theme from Kladi and Adobe Max is ready for us to be used into our illustration. I know we got like 30 seconds.
No, we have less than that.
Less than that. Then we'll talk about it tomorrow. We're gonna hang out tomorrow as well. So I'm not gonna push it. I'm just gonna leave it until tomorrow. So make sure to stay tuned. And of course, thank you so much for joining us. I can see Seth in the chat. What's up?
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Seth.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. It was awesome. We'll be back again tomorrow with another Rework It. Remember to submit your designs at iamkladi.com/reworkit, iamkladi.com/reworkit. Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. And don't forget to submit your file. Goodbye.
Yeah, bye.